Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing my thoughts for Everton nil, Newcastle United nil yesterday evening. So let's get straight into it. Very interesting game. Lots to talk about. The scoreline doesn't really reflect on what kind of game it was. There was a lot of events, there was a lot going on, but I'm going to try and unpack it all for you now and give you my thoughts on the draw and the good point against Newcastle. But we'll start in the first half, and I thought we started the better of the two sides, to be honest. I thought, I said in my preview, I wanted to see us come out, the blocks quite early and get at Newcastle and make it difficult for them. I felt like we did do that. I think we came out firing quite positively and we created a couple of chances here and there, maybe sighters, half chances, but there was definitely something positive about our performance in that first 15, 20 minutes. And we didn't let Newcastle have it all their own way, which was what I wanted to see, which was what I said in my preview. But that being said, they did grow into the game. A big clearance off the line from Iliman and Jai, a back heel. It looked so calm and collected, but it felt, especially in the ground, it felt anything but. But that clearance from Iliman and Jai from a Bruno Guimaraes strike from the far edge of the box. I think that was definitely a turning point in the game. It was definitely a moment where I thought Newcastle were growing into the game. They were getting the ability to create chances. So I think if you look at the first 15 minutes and then the second 15 minutes following that, I think it was probably quite an even first half. There wasn't really, a team that were on top for large spells of the game. I thought it was very even. It was pretty end-to-end half, but there was a few incidents in that first half, which, the first one I think we have to say is the first penalty incident for Newcastle. It's a penalty, isn't it? I think, there was a lot of anger in the ground at the time, and, everyone was like, it's a VAR decision that's gone against us once again. But if you watch it back, James Tarkowski has just wrestled Sandro Tonali to the floor. There's no denying that. It was pretty silly, pretty naive because, the chance for Jacob Murphy on the edge of the box, he put it well wide and skied it into the Gladys Street end. But that being said, it was a penalty to Newcastle. I'm not denying that. I do think it was a penalty. And as I said before, naivety, silly from James Tarkowski because he didn't need to do it. He's more than capable. He's got the strength. He's got the power in the air to be able to beat Sandro Tonali to the ball. He doesn't need to try those tactics and he doesn't need to drag the player to the floor. So I think it's just a little bit of a silly incident. But then what followed was a very interesting moment in the game. Anthony Gordon picked up the ball trying to score his first goal since leaving Everton against Everton. And I have never heard Goodison Park as loud and as angry as I did in that moment there. That was probably one of the loudest I've ever heard Goodison Park, and it was all directed at Anthony Gordon. And he tried to do his process. I think Eddie Howe was talking about it in the pre-match show about his process in the Manchester City game where Anthony Gordon tries to block it all out. But for me, I was watching him. He didn't look up once from the penalty spot. He didn't look up once from the ball. And I think he knew he was very nervous and he knew that Jordan Pickford had a very good chance of saving that penalty. And up he stepped and he missed, didn't he? It was a great save from Jordan Pickford and the Gladys Street end and the whole of Goodison Park erupted, didn't it? It was probably one of the best atmospheres and probably one of the best moments in terms of, the celebrations from the crowd that I've seen since the Merseyside derby last season, since Dominic Calvert-Lewin put that second one in against Liverpool. It was absolutely amazing, the atmosphere, and it kind of boosted it. I think it lifted us because, as I said before, there was a little bit of anger and a little bit of disappointment when the penalty got given, but the second Jordan Pickford saved that penalty and the crowd just lifted and it was absolutely fantastic, that atmosphere, and the anger was all directed towards Anthony Gordon. There's been a little bit of a stick on Twitter and various social medias today to Everton fans about how they've reacted to Anthony Gordon. I think it's free game, to be honest. I think, in the immediate aftermath of him leaving, we know that he didn't want to train. There was a few altercations potentially with fans and players, especially after that Southampton game where we lost at Goodison Park. And as I said before, I think it was free game. I think he was winding up the fans even before the penalty incident. He was nodding to the Gladys Street end and giving a little bit of stick back. But no, every credit to all the Evertonians. I think if he's given out the stick, I think he has to take it, and he definitely took a large brunt of the stick from that after that penalty miss. But as I said before, great save from Jordan Pickford and the celebrations that sparked, even from Adelaide Decore, the celebrations that were sparked from him saving that penalty. I think it galvanized us and gave us a real big boost as a fan base and as a team as well. So I think that definitely helped us get us to half time. And Gordon lost his head a little bit. I know he slipped in front of the Gladys Street end, and there was some ironic jeers from the Evertonians behind the goal, which you do love to see. But that being said, I do think it carried us to half time, that penalty save, and it made sure that we were going into the break, we were galvanized, and there was a little bit of a decent feeling around the ground when we did go into half time because we thought, no, we're in the game here, we're playing well. We've got a decent chance of at least coming out of this with a point. So I think that was really positive to see. And, Evertonians were right up for it going into that second half. But my half-time thoughts, really, I was thinking, good performance. Can we build on it? Obviously, there was the unlucky chance from Abdoulaye Doucouré in the first half, a great cross from James Garner to find him in the middle of the box. And Abdoulaye Doucouré rose highest. It was a great header, probably one of the best headers I've seen at that end of the ground. But that being said, it was just a slight fraction offside, and that was disappointing to see because I think the passage of play from James Garner and Abdoulaye Doucouré linking up there would have been nice to see that result in a goal, but VAR intervened. It was offside. It was quite far offside as well. So disappointing. But as I said, I was talking about half time going into that. I was thinking good performance so far. Can we build on it? Can we come out firing in the second half? Try and create more chances and just try and see off Newcastle. I definitely thought they were there for the taking in the first half. I thought we played well. Maybe there was, a slight disappointment that we weren't, trying to create many chances. It was relatively long ball. There wasn't really much in terms of, creativity. It was the balls into Illy Minajai into his feet were few and far between, really. He didn't really get many opportunities, but I thought he was underrated yesterday. But yeah, I was thinking, more going into that second half, can we try and impose ourselves a little bit more, create a little bit more in terms of going forward and just try and see off Newcastle. But second half, we didn't really get going. We didn't come out firing as much as I would have hoped. It feels to me that but for individual brilliance and individual moments from players like Dwight McNeil or Illy Njai, it doesn't really feel to me like we're going to score that many goals, which is fine. And especially yesterday because we kept them out and we kept our first clean sheet of the season, which is definitely a positive. It's fine playing like that, but we've seen opportunities and we've seen examples this season so far, especially at Aston Villa, where we're just leaking goals and leaking goals, very quickly and in quick succession. So I think yesterday it was fine. Obviously, Newcastle are a top side coming to Goodison. That we kind of sympathised with the team, knowing that there wasn't going to be many chances. I said that in my preview that I didn't think there was going to be many chances for the team, but if we could just keep defensively solid, which is what we did. And that being said, in that second half, there was one big incident that I want to talk about, and it was the second penalty incident of the afternoon. And it was Dominic Calvert-Lewin being bundled over by Dan Burn in the box. We can talk about Idrissa Gueye in a minute, and we can get onto that chance in a minute, but I'll start with the penalty, and I'll start with the Stonewall penalty first. That, for me, is an absolute Stonewaller. How Dan Burn can get away with bundling into Calvert-Lewin. He had absolutely no chance of getting that ball. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was about to put the ball into an empty net. It was a great save from Nick Pope from the first chance from Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but how Dan Burn can get away with doing that, and it didn't even go to the screen. The referee didn't even check the monitor. It felt wrong to me. It felt an absolute robbery. And we can talk about VAR, we can talk about refereeing decisions, we can talk about refereeing performances all day. I could talk about it, for an hour long. But that being said, yesterday it was a disgrace. I thought the fact that we weren't given a penalty in that situation was really, really wrong. And I'll come on to the Idrissa Gueye one now because how he's not scoring that as well. I'll never know. He went for a little bit of a purple patch towards the back end of last season, scoring a few goals. I think he got one against Brentford and Nottingham Forest. So, he can put the ball in there. He has shown that he can put the ball in the net. But that being said, that passage of play, how we didn't get given a penalty for that. I think, I've seen various videos on social media. I've seen someone on TalkSport yesterday evening, their live reaction to it. They were adamant that it was a Stonewall penalty, and how it wasn't a penalty, I will never know. But that being said, we can move on from that. And, we kind of dug in from that point. As I said before, we don't really look like being able to impose ourselves, do we? We don't really look like a team that are going to go forward and create a lot of chances. And after that penalty shout, we didn't really create much. There wasn't really much going forward. That being said, we kept defensively solid. I thought Michael Keane was fantastic yesterday. And I was saying this to the people I was sat with at the game. I thought there was no bad performances yesterday. I can't single out a single player that played badly. I think James Garner did a great shift at right back. Michael Keane played well. James Tarkowski played well. I thought the defence was relatively solid. So I think if you're not creating a lot of chances, at least your defence has to be solid. And I was pleased that we did keep them out yesterday and we hung on for a good point. But that being said, my standout was probably, I thought Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a good game, but James Garner at right back, I thought he was fantastic. And also Oral Mangala, I thought he had a very decent performance in midfield. But as I said before, there was no real bad performances. I don't think you can single one player out and say we had a bad performance. But going forward, I just think the tactics do kind of, hinder a couple of players like Illy Minajai, like Dwight McNeil in that sense, where we're not going to create a lot of, opportunities. So I think the tactics were maybe a little bit off going forward, but that being said, I've said it plenty of times in this video already that if you're not going to create a lot of chances going forward, at least stay defensively solid, and we absolutely did that. And fair play to Jordan Pickford for keeping it at 0-0, especially with that Anthony Gordon penalty. But as I said before, Michael Keane, James Garner, even Ashley Young, they all played well in defence. So I was pleased, relatively pleased with the performance, but. My final thoughts, a good point, a very good point against a top Newcastle side. I said it in my preview that we had to look out for the likes of Bruno Guimaraes. He's a top player and he unlocked us a couple of times. So we did well to keep him relatively quiet and, not give him too many opportunities. But as I said before, a good point. Gordon, I thought he got what he deserved. A little bit of karma there, especially for how things were left after his exit from Everton and, various incidents since he's left Everton and coming back to Goodison Park in a Newcastle shirt. I think it was a little bit of karma. What goes around comes around. And that being said, I think it sets us up nicely for the break. I think it's a good point against a very good team who, just last weekend were getting a point against Manchester City at St. James's Park. So it's a good point, sets us up nicely for an international break. And hopefully we can take those performances against Crystal Palace and Newcastle after the international break and go into the Ipswich game and try and get a result at Portman Road. But that is all from my thoughts for today on Everton 0, Newcastle 0. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.